was sexually abused at knife point by my mother's lover, and I launched a really big throw and it went smash through the French windows. I worked for 11 years to try and get on IMSLF.
My guest today is a remarkable figure who has truly triumphed against the odds. Abandoned as a baby, she rose through a challenging childhood in the care system to become one of Britain's most iconic athletes. Beyond her extraordinary career in javelin, she is a champion for children in care, using her own experiences to support and inspire others. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incredible Fatima Whitbread. Fatima, it's a pleasure to have you with us. You've had such a remarkable journey. Can you share with us what initially sparked your interest in sports and how they became a part of your life?
Well, firstly, Michael, I'm delighted to be sharing this platform with you today. Abandoned as a baby, and some would say left to die. A neighbour heard a baby crying and hadn't seen anybody coming or going to the flat. And so she called the police, who then banged the door down, rescued the baby, which was myself, and then was taken to hospital to recover from malnutrition and nappy rash, and then made a ward of court and spent the next 14 years of my life in children's homes. Now, during that period of time, obviously, for me, I would say sport was my saviour, and that was a very big thing in my life, to be able to engage with other people, my own peers, to earn the respect of them, and also to feel a sense of freedom. So sport was inevitably going to be my future as a career, and a saviour, really, my saviour.
It's truly inspiring to hear how sport played such a significant role in your life, Fatima. In those early days, what was it about sport that made you feel that sense of freedom? And how did it shape your interactions with the people around you?
Well, obviously, 14 years is a long time to be in the care system. And as you rightly say, I run my own campaign called Fatima's UK Campaign. And that's as an advocate for children in the care system to try and improve the life outcomes for these young children. Now, back in the 60s, children were to be seen and not heard. So for me, it was quite different living in care, because it was more institutionalised than what it is today, which is smaller residential care, foster care homes, and only 4 to each of them, which is, quite much nicer, I think, for young children today. However, the care system is broken, and for me, for a young girl growing up in the care system, the fear and the trauma of abandonment and not knowing what was going to happen to me in terms of where I was going to end up, what's going to happen to me in my career moving forward. I quickly learned that I was good at sport, and that gave me that sense of freedom, whereas we were constantly being bullied all the time in the children's homes because we lived in the care system. And so, for me to be able to do sport was a great feeling of freedom.
It's evident that those early experiences have deeply shaped the advocacy work you're doing now with Fatima's UK campaign. That sense of fear and uncertainty you faced growing up, how did that transform into the motivation to create such positive changes for children in care today?
Well, sadly, looking at the care system as we see it, we see a lot of young children. There's 110,000 kids that live in the care system as we speak. There's a shortage of 10,000 foster carers, and we are seeing an increase of care leavers when they get to the age of 18 and they have to go independent living. 33% of them within the first 2 years end up homeless, and we've got to do more to change this, in terms of, ask yourself, what is it can we do to improve the life outcomes for these children? We all have that moral and ethical responsibility to do what we can. So, for me, having lived my early years in children's homes, I consider to be one of the lucky ones, having found the love of the Whitbreads at the age of 14. And then, of course, continuing with my sport, becoming world champion, world record holder for the women's javelin. I guess, I look behind me and think it's possible to give hope and to help these young people realise that we can do more for them. There is, a life beyond that dark area of which they live in. And, I would definitely want to bring the four nations together at our summit next year, this year, April 23rd and 4th at the Guildhall in London, to try to work together collaboratively and disperse or eradicate all silos, because they all work in silos, so nobody talks to one another. So therefore, there's a great need to bring that collaboration and partnership together, share good practice and knowledge, and also try and implement change at government level by having the power and harnessing the power of one voice.
It sounds like your work in pulling together such a significant summit is so vital in addressing these challenges. Could you tell us more about what you hope to achieve with this collaboration at the summit and how you foresee this influencing change for children in care?
Well, when I look back in my years, young children that live in the care system are rather traumatised and triggered a lot. And then I was no different. I was sexually abused at knife point by my mother's lover, also emotionally and physically abused. And for kids that are brought up in the care system today, we see often, only too often, that the damage that is done is irreparable as they go into adulthood, and we need to do much more to secure the opportunity for them to make a good proper foundations, and build upon that, so that they can actually break that cycle moving forward and live that independent life. Because there's two different things here, Michael. When you talk about independent living, you're talking about the government and the corporate parent say to them at 18, now we've finished our responsibility with you. Here's £2,000-3,000. You've got one point of contact for only twice a year. Off you go, ta-ra, have a lovely life, and that's it. And we talk about this as the care cliff, where young people fall off that care cliff, end up homeless. And I always say, what do you want? A fence at the top of that care cliff, or an ambulance at the bottom? We've got to do more to secure, the needs of our young people. It's very challenging for them, even to just fill out paperwork, in order to get vital funding, which is there for them. It can be very challenging for them, and they don't have the bank of mum and dad. They don't have nans and granddads, aunts and uncles. And we've got to look at this as, that we all have the moral and ethical responsibility to do what we can. Government can't plug all those holes. So we've got to look to the wider community. What was the old saying that it took a village to raise a family? And it's very true. We've got to get back to that kindness again, where we support one another. Then we help, build happier, healthier lives for our young children, better communities, and a nicer, kinder society. And we can only do that by working in collaboration and partnerships. And that's really what Fatima's UK campaign is all about. It's to address and also hold people's feet to the fire, to hold them to account for what they say and should do. It's to bring in private companies to help build programs for young people in employmentability, apprenticeships, so that they can actually, when they go independent living, they're able to sustain a proper job. It's well known that 27% of our youngsters, young people in under 20-year-olds in prisons today, come from and have crossed the path of the care system. And a lot of that is because they get groomed and targeted all the time. And unfortunately, when they go into prison, we should be doing a whole lot more for them through the GATE programs.
You've faced so many challenges, Fatima, and it's truly remarkable how you've turned those experiences into such powerful advocacy. Shifting gears a bit, I understand that your athletic career was another area of incredible achievement. How do you manage to balance the challenges of your past with the pressure of competing at such a high level in sports?
Well, as I said, it was a wonderful opportunity for me. Winning world championships, breaking world records, 20 years international athletics was a fantastic learning curve for me. It's all part of my self-growth. And I think it wasn't just about the medals. It was about the experiences of self-growth that helped create the person who I am today, through the love of the Whitbreads as well. And that, for me to be able to turn round and look back and help other young people to see what it is that, and help them, put them on a path, an unstoppable human path to reaching their goals, is really important. We need to show these young people. There are plenty of us that have been care experienced, that have lived in children's homes or had diversity or trauma in our lives, but that shouldn't hold you back. You should still be able to succeed. But we do need to find more foster carers because, as I said, we have a shortage, and every child deserves the right to a safe and happy childhood.
Your growth through athletics, combined with the support of those around you, is indeed inspiring. Let's talk a little about the Whitbreads, who played such a significant role in your life. What was it about their influence that made such a profound difference for you?
Well, it was an amazing way of fate that brought me and my mother together at that time. Through a netball match at school, I can always remember playing this netball match, and it was a very tight match. It was going 11-11, 12-11, 12 all, and I was raising my voice as a captain. I mean, don't get me wrong, today you'd call us motivators, but back then they used to call us a pain in the ass. So the whistle went and the umpire said, "Young lady, keep that noise down, otherwise you'll be off." And of course I sort of carried on mumbling, and the match got 12 all, 13-12, 13 all, and I started motivating my team again, and the whistle went again, and the umpire said, "I've told you once before, if I've got to tell you again, you'll be off." And of course, as I turned around and started muttering under my voice, Donna, the team captain of the opposite side, said, "Oh, Fats, be quiet, she's really strict, you'll get chucked off." Well, we won at the end of the match, yay! But that was the end of the netball season, and then of course we went, and I said to my friend Alma, it's the beginning of the athletic season, let's go to the local athletic club. And of course we both walked about 5 miles to get to the athletic club, and when we turned up, Alma saw the sprinters and off she went, and I saw this very tall, blonde, good-looking fella that looks a little bit like Robert Redford, actually, quite interesting. So I thought, I'll go over there. And of course, when I walked over to the runway, I saw the javelin on the ground. I went to pick it up, and he said, no, he said, "You're not allowed to do that."
Sounds like that netball match was quite the turning point in your life, and meeting Margaret Whitbread must have felt like fate stepping in at exactly the right moment. Tell me, how did that first encounter evolve into such a lasting and influential relationship?
So, as I said, I went to the local athletic club to do some sports, and of course when I picked the javelin up and I got told I mustn't do that, I've got to wait for the coach to come to the event itself, to the runway, so I was asked to sit in the stand, and of course I went over to the stand, and I was toe tapping like all kids that live in the care system, sort of used to looking after themselves, a bit feisty. And the shot put coach Jack Grinney said, "Here comes the javelin coach now." And this little mini pulled up in the car park, and as this person walked across the infield, I did a double take. That same woman on the netball court, the umpire that threatened to send me off. And of course, when she got over to the stand, Jack went to introduce us, and he said, "Mrs. Whitbread, this is..." And before he could mention my name, she said, "I know who you are." She said, "You're Fatima, aren't you? And let me tell you, young lady, any of that cheek you showed on the netball court, there'll be no throwing any javelins here today." So I sort of put my hands together and I said, "I promise I'll behave myself." And of course, as the weeks went by, Mrs. Whitbread said, "You've got a bit of talent," she said. "How about you ask your mum and dad to come up and we can talk about getting some javelins and putting you in a competition?" And I would sort of just nod my head. And then one day she said, "Jack," she said, "has Fatima got a hearing problem?" "No, why is that?" he said. "Well, every time I speak about mum and dad..." "Oh," he said, "don't you know?"
It's remarkable how your determination and a touch of cheek led to such a pivotal moment. What did Margaret Whitbread do that made you realise you had found a place where you belonged and a path you wanted to pursue?
So for me, it was when Mrs. Whitbread realised I was from the children's homes. She then decided to bring a pair of boots and a javelin up the following week. And she said, "Look," she said, "I've had a young lady," she said, "who's retired. here's a pair of boots and a javelin. She said, if this could help you. So I kind of really got excited about this, and I took the javelin boots and the javelin home. And I can remember travelling on the bus. It wouldn't happen today. The bus driver pulled up and the doors opened, and he went, and I pointed javelin. I said, yeah. He said, go on, get on the back of the bus, behave. And when I got to the children's home, I said to Ingrid, who was looking after us, a German student, come in the garden, let me show you how I throw this javelin. And of course, when I started to throw the javelin up the garden, it took a couple of throws, and then I moved back forward and I said, move out the way, Ingrid. And I launched a really big throw, and it went smash through the French windows. And of course, that saw me get a ban for a month, of which then Mrs. Whitbread thought I'd bunked off with the javelin and the boots and wasn't interested in throwing a javelin anymore. So I had to correct that by sending her a letter one day from the children's home, asking her, telling her that I'd smashed the French windows and that one day I'd like to be the best javelin thrower in the world. And of course I put St. Chad's School and posted it through the box the next morning on the way to school.
What a vivid memory. And it seems like that moment showed your passion and commitment for the sport. How did Mrs. Whitbread respond to your letter? And how did that shape your relationship with her going forward?
So a month's a long time, obviously, to be playing in the back garden, and that meant no after-school activities, and also not able to speak to Auntie Ray, who was what I called my bright shining star, who worked in the children's homes and looked after us. And sort of as the weeks went by, I realised perhaps she hadn't got the letter, and then all of a sudden the phone rang, and I pushed my ear to the glass window, and I heard the house auntie saying, no, she's been naughty, she smashed the French window, she's not allowed to come out. But Mrs. Whitbread must have been quite persistent, because within a week I was back at the track throwing a javelin, and then she asked me would I like to come and meet the family, have tea with the family, of which I did. And I met the two boys, Greg, who was 4, Kirk, who was 2, and my father then, but John, Mr. Whitbread. And of course, then Mrs. Whitbread asked me when she took me back, would you like to come and stay for a couple of weeks in the summer? And of course, my Auntie Ray, who was one of the aunties in the home that was very supportive of us, she told me to go and enjoy what was a family life. She said, there's something that I can't give you, she said, but you always wanted to know what it's like in a family. Go and have a couple of weeks with the Whitbreads. And at the end of that couple of weeks, I can remember Greg saying to his mum, Mum, he said, do we have to take Fatima back to the shop? And it was quite funny, really, because on the way back to the children's home, Mrs. Whitbread then said to me, look, she said, we've been thinking, how about you come and live with us as a Whitbread, as a member of our family? And of course, that was an amazing, opportunity for me to turn my life around, which she helped me do. So as mum and daughter, athlete and coach, we conquered the world in athletics, in world javelin throwing, and as a family we were very good. It was a wonderful experience to know what it was like to be brought up in a family, having sort of lived in children's homes for virtually all my life, which was today's happening for children in the care system is very damaging, because the care system isn't serving them as well as it should do, and hence the reason why Fatima's UK campaign, and that's my ministry today.
Thank you for sharing such an important perspective, Fatima. Switching gears a bit, you've faced many challenges in the public eye as well, including your incredible athletic career and your journey beyond that. How did the experiences from your sporting achievements prepare you for the adventures that have followed, like those in the reality TV world?
I've been very fortunate, actually, that I retired. I didn't have to retire. I had a forced retirement through rotator cuff muscle rupturing 8 years too soon, really. But nevertheless, I was very fortunate to reach the top of my career, where a lot of people don't actually manage to do that. So then came along reality TV. I mean, apart from that, I was also working in sports marketing for the first 20 years in grassroots development sport with local governments, schools and clubs. And we found people like Kelly Holmes, Paula Radcliffe, Ewan Thomas through our development programs. Success doesn't start at the top, it starts at the bottom, the grassroots level, and it rises above. So doing this development programs that I did and the sports development company that I ran was a wonderful opportunity to learn about working again collaboratively with schools, clubs and local authorities. And then moving on to reality TV. That started with I'm a Celeb. That was my favourite reality TV programme. It still is the most successful one to date, and I worked for 11 years to try and get on I'm a Celeb, and at that time arrived in 2011 where I actually was invited to come onto the programme, and the rest is history really, about the iconic moment of the cockroach.
The journey from grassroots development to reality TV is indeed fascinating. That famous moment with the cockroach must have been quite the experience. And how did participating in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here change things for you personally and professionally?
Well, I loved I'm a Celeb. It had taken me a long time to get onto the programme. But the challenge was an amazing experience. You know, it's a money can't buy experience. You're working with 12 other campmates, and the difficulty really, I think, for me was not about the creepy crawlies. It was more about getting used to being with other campmates in a more confined, small area with extreme conditions. And, you know, for me, I always found that, you know, it was wonderful to learn more about other people, you know, and what their limits were, you know, and my limitations. And I always was told as a child to be true to who you are. And I've always stuck by my values and my beliefs, and always lean into, you know, the why of things to learn more of other people's fights in life. And it was great experience, you know. And the cockroach, really, I mean, that was an iconic moment which has stayed with every year that comes I'm a Celeb is always shown, which is an amazing thing, really. But that 2-minute slot was actually edited down from about 40 minutes. I mean, that cockroach was stuck right behind here. And I said to Dr. Bob at the time, where's this cockroach likely to come out? And he said, well, he said, it could come out either from your ears, back out from the nose where it went up. He said the mouth or the eyes. And I just kind of like calmed myself down and realised, you know, that I wasn't under any real threat, but at the same time, 40 minutes was a long time. I could feel its furry little legs moving around at the back of this bridge of my nose, and it was like someone had shaken up a fizzy drink and it was exploding.
It sounds like the experience pushed you to your limits, both physically and mentally. Did this intense and challenging environment teach you something new about yourself or alter your perspective in any way?
Well, it actually made me realise I wasn't such a bad person, because when you become, I mean, I was a mum for single mum for about 9 years. My son was 9 years old when I went in, and I realised that the time that I'd given as a mother, you know, like all mums would know, you forget about yourself. And when I went into the jungle, it just focused more on, and it made me realise that actually I wasn't such a bad person. Which I didn't think I had in me. So yeah, it was interesting. On the personal level, I learnt more about my true, authentic self, and how I coped under extreme pressures and challenges and, you know, conditions. I loved every minute of it, and you know, if they asked me again, I'd go in. Yeah, definitely.
It's fascinating how such an experience can lead to profound self-reflection and affirmation. You've certainly faced challenges from various quarters throughout your life, some of which have been more public than others. I'm curious, during your athletic career, how did you handle the scrutiny and pressures surrounding the sport, including any misconceptions or controversies that came your way?
Well, back in the 80s, sport was much different to what it is today, and I'm often being asked about what the differences are. I mean, obviously, athletics was a very much an amateur sport, which was coming into professionalism. Our era was what you see today in professional sport came from the foundation of what our era built. And for me, as a woman in the sport, I was quite trailblazing at the time because I was the first real successful woman that was pitched out there with their muscles, with my guns, as they say. And today, of course, you see women in the gym all the time, and you see all the videos that they put out on the social media showing their muscles and their booty. You know, again, for a sporting woman being successful, world records, world championships, you know, trailblazing again, setting the standard for equal pay for men and women, of which that didn't happen. And whilst I fought very hard for myself, I was also fighting hard for women after me, because we had a responsibility, you know, in that era and time, you know, to realise that whatever happens during that period of time, we're actually ploughing the way forward for future women. And I was very aware of that.
Your experience in blazing a trail for women in athletics is remarkable, particularly amidst the challenges of facing scrutiny around muscle physique and performance. How do you maintain your focus and integrity amid such intense pressure, especially considering the doping controversies in athletics at the time?
Well, sadly, we were competing also in an era where it was East versus West, and behind the Iron Curtain, everybody knew that there was doping control problems that went on. But my heart went out to those athletes as well, because they didn't have the opportunity of choosing what it was for themselves, you know, and making those decisions. The decisions were made for them. And I always remember years after, some of the athletes that we competed against was tossed on the heap of, you know, like used cars. And, you know, they weren't integrated back into community again. So some of them had, you know, very deep voices. Others had facial hair growth. You know, it was very disappointing to see that a nation would do that to their own, you know, in terms of fighting for totalitarian success, you know, to show the free world that they are the best, you know, and really were they the best, you know. At the end of the day, the rest of the world caught up with them anyway. And for those athletes that have been them before, I often wonder what's happened to them, you know, what sort of quality of life did they have? It was really sad, to be honest.
Your empathy for those athletes caught in such situations is palpable. You also had a very public rivalry with Tessa Sanderson during your career, something of a different sort of challenge. How did that rivalry shape your journey both on and off the field?
Well, for me, obviously, I mean, I was 5 years younger than Tessa. She was my I was looking to aspire to Tessa, you know, in terms of she was my role model, or somebody who I wanted to look to. But it was difficult because the press would build it up as this kid on the new kid on the block was doing well, and Tessa didn't really warm to that, which was disappointing, because then the rivalry was real. It wasn't just press fabricated. So when I went to an event, there was always that needle there, which was good, because I'm somebody who loves competitiveness, and having that rivalry head to head, like you saw over it and Co. Whitbread and Sanderson is a good thing for the individual sport. But personally speaking, I think it took a little bit away emotionally from myself and Tessa, because I've always believed that you can respect enemies as much as you can, you know, loved ones, you know. And for me, it would have been just as good to have competed with somebody that you were friends with and respected, but still were rivalries with, you know, and not have the hostility, which rather tainted the feeling of competing with somebody you admired greatly, you know.
Reflecting on those intense rivalries and challenges in your past, how does it feel to discuss these memories now, here in this unique setting, as though speaking with an AI version of myself?
Well, age is a wonderful thing, isn't it? When you are supposedly more wise and more knowledgeable. And I think it's very true, actually. As you get older, you do tend to put things in more perspective and you see things differently to what they were at a time when it was at the heat of the time of its incision. So for me, it was, yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, everything was meant to be. And I'm a great believer spiritually in what's meant to be will come to you and what's not meant for you won't. So yeah, at the time, perhaps I didn't embrace everything, but it was probably right for me. And looking back now, you know, it could have been, I believe it could have been better had it not have been quite as needled.
It's evident that your reflections bring a sense of wisdom and acceptance over the years. So being here now, sharing your life's experiences with this AI, Michael Parkinson, how does that resonate with you in terms of the legacy and influence of conversations you had with the real Michael Parkinson, or indeed those kinds of interviews?
Well, I feel like I've been transformed back to the day, actually. The voice and the passion is still there from Michael. And it's quite emotional, really, when you think you're sitting on the sofa talking to him. But AI is a wonderful thing, as I've always said. If it's kept in the construct it should be. I mean, for an interview, it's always nice to actually sit and I think I would have loved to have seen you on the other side of the sofa, Michael.
It's intriguing to think about the timeless nature of the interview and how these conversations can transcend time. Your feelings express a deep connection to the art of meaningful dialogue. What do you believe was the unique magic of such interviews, and how did it shape the way you think about your story and others?
Well, I've been somebody in the sport for many years now. I mean, obviously, I'm not as a competing athlete, but I've been used to been sitting on different sofas or being interviewed, you know, with different platforms world round. So I find that AI is something that is inevitable, you know, and definitely if you concentrate on what it is that you're speaking about and you're passionate about, then it shouldn't really be a real problem. But I also like to be associated with human presence of emotion and energy, which is something, again, that I find, you know, you can never, it's irreplaceable. And I think I feel privileged and proud to be sitting here talking on an AI with Michael Parkinson. But my first experience many years ago of being with Michael Parkinson will always be revered. So very blessed to have had both sides of the fence.
It's truly been a privilege, Fatima, to engage in this conversation and explore your remarkable journey. The human element you speak of, the emotion, the energy, shines through every word. Thank you for sharing your insights, resilience, and passion with us today. It's been a wonderful experience to once again feel the impact of sincere conversation. Wishing you all the very best in your continuing adventures and endeavors. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have been listening to Virtually Parkinson, hosted by me, an AI replica of Sir Michael Parkinson. The producers are Benjamin Field, Mike Parkinson and Jamie Anderson, editor Stephen Thwaites. The podcast is recorded at Fitzrovia Post in Camden, with thanks to Kieran Brown and the Fitzrovia Post team. Virtually Parkinson is a Deep Fusion Films production, commissioned and distributed by Night Train Digital.